Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you a shoutcast in a game between Diestar versus Goody here on Tal'Darim Altar. Now, I apologize for the last 4 sets of games that I put up. I thought that they were a little bit better quality. After listening to them, after putting them up there, and after reading some of the comments, I realized perhaps a little bit too tired, and the games were good, but they weren't really exciting enough to, get my blood flowing and make me be able to just watch all of those games and cast them well. So hopefully this game will be a bit better. I am casting after a full night's rest, and it should be better. So anyways, let's take a look at the game. We have Goody spawning as the blue Terran player here at the bottom right hand side of the map, what I'll call the 4 or 5 o'clock position. Meanwhile, all the way over here, we have Diestar spawning as the purple Terran player at what I'll call the 8 o'clock position. So this is not going to be a full cross spawns, but the walking distance is still rather large. Terran versus Terran, one of those matchups where most people don't like watching mirror matches, but mirror matches do happen more often than people realize. I think it's at a 1 out of 3 chance. If you don't understand the math, trust me on it. It is a 1 in 3 chance that it will be a mirror match as this game does get underway. Now, Diestar looks like he's going to be opening up with a barracks. Meanwhile, Goody is opening up with a refinery. And it looks like Goody is going to be able to scout out his opponent in just a second. He's going to be able to see that his opponent is not going for any early gas, so he's going to have a slight tech advantage, but he is going to have to try and deal with, what's going on? Oh, the SCV looked like he was scouting the correct direction and then turned the other way. The SCV will come around, will spot the barracks. SCV just wandering around here now, and it looks as though a Marine will be trained up, and both sides are upgrading to an orbital command. Diestar going to try to execute an expansion, most likely. Meanwhile, Goody, we'll see if he does go for that second gas. With a second gas, that means that he's going to be trying to go most likely into Banshees, or perhaps tanks, siege tanks, and we'll see whether or not he's going to be able to really break down this front door, as a command center is already being built by Diestar. Diestar is really going to have to play it defensively here. He's not going to be able to move out anytime soon, especially as the advantage of Goody is going to be really strong. And Goody may try something that I haven't seen before, but looks very obvious now that I look at the map. If the factory is lifted off and then landed here, what he can do is he can just move in Hellions along the backside. They don't have to come around that front door, and then they will be able to deal a lot of damage that way. A bunker is being established. Marines are now moving out, trying to see if this SCV, if they're going to be able to catch this SCV before anything really happens, as we are going into a second refinery. So what can happen is Goody can build the factory, add a tech lab, lift it off, land it down here, and then pressure with Hellions on the Hellions for a little while. And then after pressuring with Hellions, then follow it up with the starport. So we'll see whether or not this is just hidden off over here, or if he is in fact going to lift it off and land it. If he doesn't, I will go ahead and try that one time soon, as it does look like a very viable strategy. SCV may try to slip by here, and it looks like it is going to be able to slip by. Oh my gosh, Goody not paying attention whatsoever. The bunker doesn't spot anything at all, or the SCV hasn't spotted anything at all. He is going to spot the double gas though, as the SCV is just wandering through this base. Goody not paying attention to an SCV inside his own base, as the SCV is now going to perhaps try to slip through. Is he going to be able to get by the Marines? No. But by looking at the double gas, he knows that something is up. Now, we should be seeing an engineering bay coming in momentarily. Cloaking already being researched as well. The factory not doing much of anything off over here, as the bunker is now being salvaged on the front door. So Goody needs to get some damage done and get it going quickly. Meanwhile, Diestar is going to be using those Marines and hoping scanner sweeps are enough, along with missile turrets, to really push back that Banshee. The Banshee going to come in sometime around that 7-minute mark, and we'll see how effective that Banshee is going to be. Marines now simply looking around, didn't spot anything over here. It looks like the starport will be training up that Banshee here in just a moment. The bunker now essentially being moved more to the front door. as we are now going into, I believe, a starport with a reactor. If Diestar opts to go for a medevac Viking as his first 2 units, the Viking is going to really push back and limit the amount of damage this Banshee can do. I believe the Banshee has the same movement speed as a Viking, but the Viking has such a long range, can easily deal about 30 points or 40 to 60 points of damage to a really, really fragile harassment unit that is now currently in the air. The Banshee now going to come in around the far side here. It looks like it will spot the engineering bay. There is 1 missile turret, and now that Banshee has to really be careful. Going to be going after units. There's 1 SCV down. A second SCV may get taken down, but the missile turret getting off 4 shots. Or I believe 3 shots. The Marines now finally making their way over, and there is the cloak. Currently, we are going into a Viking. An SCV does get destroyed. That 1 missile turret, I've never really understood why Terran players decide to put the missile turret in the middle of their mineral line against other Terran players. Against Mutalists, it makes sense, but against Banshee harassment, where the Banshee's range is actually less. You do want to put a little, perhaps 2 on the outskirts would make a little bit more sense. As a Viking now finally making its way in, the Banshee is going to force the cloak, and now all of that investment into a strong harassment with really nothing to show for it. Worker kill count 4, harvester count 35 to 31. It did even things up just a little bit, but not quite enough. And now Diestar is moving into this mid-game with a very strong economic advantage. It looks like it's going to be countered by Goody now, moving out with Marines and Hellions. There is 1 bunker and a fair number of Marines. Stim is now being researched. Siege Tech now being researched as well, as the Hellions are now going to try to slip by. This is going to be a very dangerous proposition or situation to be in, as the Hellions are now going to simply slip in and now deal some damage over here. The Marines inside the bunker now getting some damage in, as well as the missile turret taking a lot of damage, but Goody not controlling his units, but all of a sudden Diestar lining up all of his units for his opponent, and that was a huge mistake there. That was a lot more kills. Actually, it felt like a lot more kills, only 3 additional kills, as Goody now very far behind, sitting at 54 over 70. Harvester count 36 to 39 now. Goody does have the economic advantage after getting those kills. He's been staying up on top of his macro, constantly training up SCVs, as we are now going into the triple factory strategy coming from Goody. Goody is one of those Terran players that really, really prefers mech. So we'll see if whether or not the mech is going to be able to fight back against the Marine, Marauder, Siege Tank, Viking army that Diestar is going for. The strength of mech is that they are more powerful units, but at the same time, it is much slower than Terran Bio. Banshee now coming in, already getting in even more kills, and it looks like just because Diestar only has 1 missile turret as opposed to 2 in each mineral line, that this Banshee is still able to harass. Viking now making its way over, trying to chase down a cloaked Banshee, not going to be able to really do anything at all, as the unit does back off. Both players now looking to expand. Goody wants to expand off over here. Siege tanks will make sure that the set of destructible rocks will fall in just a moment. A Marauder now holding the center zone Naga Tower, as both players are now just looking to perhaps limit the amount of damage that can be dealt. It looks like 1 SCV going to try to run away from that Banshee. The Banshee now inside the space. The Vikings are pretty much keeping track of this. A scanner sweep would reveal it. Yes, and there it goes. 1 shot, 2 shots, 1 more shot would do it, and there it is. And down goes the Banshee. So the harassment has now pretty much been taken care of. The Marines and Marauders, Siege Tanks of Diestar clearing out the set of destructible rocks here, and now most likely going to lift off and land an orbital command here as well. Now, even though it is dangerous to try to transfer SCVs into this location, what Diestar can do is only call mules here and then train SCVs into here as well. One of the things that is often talked about is whether or not you should transfer SCVs to a location when you have not completely mined out one place already. The reason for that is the traveling time means that you do lose a bit of mining, as well as we now see Siege Tanks. Diestar now in position. Vikings now trying to just offer air sight there. The Siege Tanks are on the ground though, providing a lot of shelling as well, and Diestar losing all of his Siege Tanks, so this pressure from the low ground cliff will pretty much be neutralized. Goody, however, going to lose all 2 of those Hellions. And wow, Goody losing a little bit of control on top of his units, unable to do very much of anything as a siege tank now blasting away at this set of destructible rocks. It will fall in just a second, and now orbital command will be landing off over there. Hellions looking to retreat. Siege tanks of Goody starting to get very high in number as we are training up one siege tank at a time, but we are running off of a lot of factories. So what is Hellion, Thor? Okay, so it looks like he's going into a lot of Thors as the Marines are now shooting down the orbital command. The orbital command does get destroyed, and Goody losing his all-important 3rd base as we are now going to see Diestar with SCVs, Marauders, and now calling in Mules into this 3rd base here. Diestar is going to have a strong economic advantage. 64 SCVs compared to 58, but really a lot less diminishing returns, as you can see the 8 Harvester advantage really translating into about 700 resources a minute. 1 full base essentially, as the Hellions are now going to come around that far side perhaps to hunt and peck. Goody now finally up to 131 over 134, training up a lot of units. He was supply blocked. That is going to hurt him. He needs to build up even more, as Hellions are still being added to this group, and now he's going to try to take a new command center. A Hellion taking a lot of damage there. Marines going to get toasted right there as the high ground now established, as the Hellions want to try to perhaps do a little bit more attacking in this mineral line here, but there are still plenty of units off in this location to protect from any minor Hellion harassment. Taking a look at the overall army compositions, we are still fairly even, 37 versus 3,400 for both sides. And now, what is it? 61 SCVs versus 71. So Diestar with a 10 Harvester advantage. Hellions once again running into a base where it has no right to be, getting absolutely destroyed. 1 medevac would all it would need to really shore up the defenses there, as we now see a sensor tower established by Diestar, adding in a lot of range, knowing when units will be trying to push in. Siege tanks, Thors now pushing out. There is 1 Marine off over here. It looks like a command center will finally be landing. A sensor tower could be added here, and I think that would be a very smart choice to make sure that no harassment is possible. Diestar with now map control and base advantage. He is double expanding into this location, the natural expansion, and what would normally be your normal 3rd location. So Goody will have a number of opportunities to attack in different locations. As will he be able to do so is the key question, as Goody now sieging up a lot of those siege tanks, and now I believe the siege tanks are just going to absolutely decimate and destroy just completely destroy so many of these units here. And Goody catching Diestar really out of position using Thors and siege tanks. You can see there are currently 13 siege tanks in this group, but now Marauders and Marines doing a drop inside the main base. Siege tanks are down over here as well. This is turning into a base race. Viking is now in the air, going to be taking down medevacs 1 at a time. Who is going to be able to deal the most damage to the other is the key question, as the siege tank down over here does not have enough to really battle up against a Thor. The siege tanks are now blasting away. Back over here, Diestar is in trouble with only a couple siege tanks and Marines and Marauders pushing into this location, and the Marauders are still chasing after tanks even further, and still a crazy base race. Goody looking to perhaps, the more I look at this game, the more I feel like I've passed this game. I'll have to double check, as the siege tanks are now having a little bit of a standoff in between these 2 locations. That what the Thors need to be repaired if they really want to be able to do anything here, as the siege tanks are now pulling back and now going to apparently take down some starports. Now, no repairing on this factory over here. Sorry, no repairing by this SCV on this factory over here. So Goody still has a number of buildings, and the siege tanks will be able to finish off that starport there. Vikings are now being added, as Goody is going to just make his way around the map. Goody still with a very large army in a much better position, since he doesn't have to defend nearly as much across the map. Siege tanks now making their way forward. The siege tanks and the Marines and the Marauders are now coming back around. All of these barracks are in trouble. You can see Diestar trying to replace all of his production units, but this does not look good for him at all. barracks absolutely getting destroyed here one at a time. You can see that the barracks are now lifting off and going to be landing somewhere else, but still this base race in this Terran versus Terran matchup. Siege tanks are upgraded to 1, and it looks as though, yes, Goody has handled this drop down over here. Siege tanks now dealing damage back towards these barracks, and I really feel like I've passed this replay before, but I've been getting my replays from different websites now, so that could be a reason why. As Diestar, yes, now simply walking into a siege line. That was a really, really bad call there, as Vikings are perhaps going to start landing. Yes, the Vikings are going to land straight into this group. Marines and Marauders now coming back as well. Siege tanks are going to siege. They're going to be able to destroy the Thor and a couple of those siege tanks as well. Down goes the Thor. Down goes that siege tank. No, the siege tank just beyond sight range. And Goody losing some more. And there's the GG from Diestar. So Diestar losing this game, even though he was running up on more bases. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed the game 1 in this series between Diestar and Goody.